One assassination. One night of airstrikes. Hundreds of missiles launched in retaliation. In just a few hours, the shadow war between Iran and Israel exploded into open conflict, pulling the United States into the middle of it. But this war didn't start yesterday. Its roots go back more than 4 decades, to a revolution that changed the Middle East forever. Subscribe and comment for more historical stories you would love to hear. For decades, the relationship between Iran, Israel, and the United States has been shaped by distrust, ideology, and power struggles. But the story really begins in 1979. That year, the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Western-backed monarchy of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. In its place rose a new Islamic government led by Ruhollah Khomeini. Almost overnight, Iran transformed from a close ally of the United States into one of its fiercest critics. The revolution also reshaped Iran's relationship with Israel. Iran's new leaders rejected Israel's legitimacy and pledged support to groups that opposed it. Over time, Iran began backing organizations like Hezbollah in Lebanon and other militant movements across the region. For Israel, this was deeply alarming. A powerful country openly calling for its destruction, building alliances across the Middle East, and expanding its military capabilities. The rivalry grew quietly but steadily through the 1980s and 1990s. Then another issue entered the picture, one that would dominate global headlines for decades. Iran's nuclear program. Iran insisted its nuclear development was peaceful, meant for energy and scientific advancement. But Israel and many Western governments believed Iran could eventually develop nuclear weapons. The possibility of a nuclear-armed Iran terrified Israeli leaders. And for years, the world watched a slow and dangerous game unfold. Sanctions, cyberattacks, covert operations, diplomatic negotiations that repeatedly collapsed. Each side waiting, each side preparing. And slowly, the tension built towards something far more dangerous. By the early 2000s, the conflict between Iran and Israel had become what analysts called a shadow war. Not an open war with armies and tanks, but a hidden battle fought through intelligence agencies, proxy groups, and secret operations. Assassinations of nuclear scientists. Explosions at military facilities. Cyberattacks like the famous Stuxnet computer worm, which targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Iran blamed Israel and the United States. Israel rarely confirmed anything, but it also rarely denied it. At the same time, Iran expanded its influence across the Middle East. Through allies and proxy groups, it gained footholds in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen. For Israel, this looked like encirclement. Iran, meanwhile, believed it was defending itself against powerful enemies. The United States added economic pressure with heavy sanctions designed to weaken Iran's economy and limit its military ambitions. But instead of ending the rivalry, the pressure hardened positions on all sides. The Middle East became a chessboard, and every move increased the risk of a direct confrontation. Still, for years, the war stayed in the shadows. Until finally, the shadows broke. In late February 2026, the long-simmering tension finally exploded. On the night of February 28, a joint military operation by the United States and Israel launched large-scale airstrikes deep inside Iran. Fighter jets roared across the sky. Missiles struck military installations. Air defense systems lit up the darkness. The targets were strategic: missile bases, weapons factories, and command centers. But one strike sent shockwaves across the world. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was reportedly killed in the attacks. For Iran, this was not just a military strike. It was a declaration of war. Within hours, Iranian commanders ordered retaliation. Missiles were launched. Drones filled the skies. And the conflict that had simmered quietly for decades suddenly erupted into open warfare. Across the Middle East, air defense systems activated. Explosions echoed across the night sky. Military bases were targeted. Allies were pulled into the crisis. What had once been a hidden struggle was now a visible battlefield. As the conflict unfolded, the consequences spread far beyond the battlefield. One of the most dangerous flashpoints became the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which nearly a fifth of the world's oil supply passes. Any disruption there could send shockwaves through the global economy. Oil markets reacted immediately. Shipping companies grew cautious. Governments began preparing for wider instability. Diplomats rushed to prevent the war from expanding further. Because the greatest fear was escalation. If more countries joined the conflict, if regional allies mobilized, if shipping routes closed, the war between Iran, Israel, and the United States could transform into something far larger. Something that would reshape the balance of power across the Middle East. For now, the fighting continues. Missiles and drones remain part of the daily headlines. Leaders trade threats and warnings. And the world watches closely. Because history has shown that conflicts like this rarely remain contained. The story that began with a revolution in 1979 has reached one of its most dangerous chapters. And the next chapter is still being written.